The Loire River Valley in central France was a great pre-cruise destination. The area was popular with the French elite, who built over 300 chateaus, both big and small, during the French Renaissance. The rural countryside had fields and fields of sunflowers grown for the oil. We set out to see some of these extraordinary castles. The Mercure, just south of the town of Tours, was our stay for the first 3 days. It was conveniently located to fast food and an Aldi's market. The best amenity was the indoor pool, hot tub, and sauna. We used it every day after long days of sightseeing and the cloudy, rainy weather. François Brissonnet, the mayor of Tours, built a house on the property, which was completed in 1508. After several owners, Santiago del Castillo acquired the castle in 1853 and tripled its size and gave it a neo-Gothic style. In 1927, Charles and Fern Bedeau purchased it and totally modernized it with central heating, American plumbing, and telephones. A mosaic of St. Martin is above the door. The wood-paneled entrance is the older part of the chateau. It leads to the reception hall, part of the Renaissance style in the time of Castillo. The walls are covered in red silk. The dining room is from the 16th century. The ceiling is rather unique. The Bedeau owners loved music. The chateau became famous when the Bedeaus hosted the wedding of Wallis Simpson and Edward VIII, Duke of Windsor, who abdicated the throne to marry her. Their religious ceremony took place here on June 3, 1937. The music is from a pipe organ installed here in the library in 1929. The Bedeaus held concerts here and imported the American Skinner organ. Edward and Wallis's civil wedding ceremony was held here too. The organ occupies 3 floors and has 1,878 pipes. The shelves hold many of Fern Bedeau's books, as she was an avid reader.
This is part of the guest apartment.
This is one of the 8 bathrooms, all decorated in glass mosaic tiles.
Now there's a throne room.
There are 8 bedrooms in the chateau. In the Drake bedroom is a replica of the wedding attire of Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson. Up the stairs to the first floor is Charles Bedeau's study. He was a French-American entrepreneur and self-made man. He had ties to Nazi Germany and was arrested in Africa in 1942. He died by suicide in a Florida prison on treason charges. Next door was Fern Bedeau's closet. Displayed here are fashions of the 1920s by designers such as Chanel, Cartier, and Patou. Some of Fern's actual clothing is here, as well as Wallis Simpson's. Fern's bedroom was very large, with her desk at one end. She stayed at the chateau after her husband's death until 1972. Then the property was given to the state. The adjoining bathroom was bright and also tiled in Art Deco mosaics. On the garden level of the chateau, we found the Bedeau's fitness room. Fern was an accomplished rider and had an electric horse. It also had stationary bikes and weights. This is another guest bedroom. The hunting lodge can be rented out for private functions. We took some time to explore part of the 550-acre park. There is a lake on the property, as well as a wooden playscape for kids. It was a wonderful place to visit with a lot of history, no crowds, and 2/3 of the furnishings belonged to previous owners. We continued our day into the town of Tours and started with a visit to Saint Gatien. This ornate Gothic cathedral was dedicated to Saint Gatien, the first bishop of Tours. As we entered, the nave was a soaring 95 feet in height. The simple altar is from 2018. Behind is the choir, and at the back is an ebony-clad tabernacle. Looking up, there were many beautiful stained glass panels. This is the back of the nave as seen from the choir area, and one of the 3 rose windows. The south transept has a 17th century organ and another rose window. The north transept is the altar to St. Martin and the last rose window. There are 24 chapels in the ambulatory or walkway behind the choir. This is the Museum of Compagnonnage, or Museum of Companionship. Craftsmen worked under an expert to create masterpieces to gain entrance into the group similar to a guild. It dates back to the Middle Ages. Trades included metalwork, stonecutters, woodworkers, shoemakers, leather, textiles, and even food. The museum opened in 1968. We ended our time in Tours with a walk through the free 12-acre botanical garden. The garden was created in 1843 for a preparatory school of medicine and pharmacy. In 1869, animals were added. The zoo portion was closed when we were there. King Louis XI started Chateau Langy in 1465. The castle was inhabited by several people until the French Revolution in 1789, when it was abandoned. In 1886, businessman Jacques Siegfried bought it and gave it new life, spending 20 years buying period furnishings and tapestries. In 1904, he gave it to the Institute of France. It has a working drawbridge which made it feel like a real castle. This is the back of the castle, which was undergoing renovations. Going through the gift shop took us to the first of 15 rooms open to the public. The room of painted wood had a trunk for travel, storage, and bench. Lords moved often, and their belongings were stored here. The room of 1,000 flowers had tapestries with flower motifs. Tapestries were decorative, but they also kept the rooms warmer and were an indicator of the owner's wealth. The motto of Anne of Brittany was death rather than dishonor. Her emblem, the ermine, appears on the floor tiles next to the fleur-de-lis. The banquet room had a huge fireplace decorated with a fortified castle. It was used for feasts, festivities, or political meetings. The antechamber was a place for daily life, such as meals and private receptions. The withdrawal chamber was a private chamber with a bed. The wedding hall is the most famous room in the chateau. Here was the wedding of 21-year-old Charles VIII and 14-year-old Anne, Duchess of Brittany, on December 6, 1491. The secret marriage was the beginning of Brittany's attachment to France, with full union 41 years later. Period-dressed mannequins and a video narrator told their story in French. Charles and Anne were to marry others, but France needed Brittany, so a deal was struck. The contract stated that if no male heir was produced, Anne would marry Charles's successor. That actually happened, and Anne spent her life trying to produce an heir. She had 2 daughters, but died at age 36 of a kidney stone. The ladies' room had striking blue-yellow tiles on the floor. The children's room had furniture for little ones, like a cradle, walker, and high chair.
And here we are in probably what's the dressing room, guardrobe, yeah, probably dressing room. Look how thick the walls are.
This is the wardrobe room. There were 23 steps for the facing or dressing of a noble lady in the 15th century. In the cabinet of sacred art, we saw a reliquary shrine from the 13th century. Other religious works adorned the walls. The reading room had an exhibition of a loom and brightly colored yarn. This is a 15th century suit of armor from Italy. The Hall of Worthies had a series of tapestries of men who portrayed chivalrous values of wisdom, prudence, courage, piety, virtue, and love. There were 9 men in the Worthies, 3 Christians, 3 Jews, and 3 pagans. Here are 3 of them. A highlight of the castle was being able to walk in the tower passageway. The walkway extended over the whole front of the castle and gave us great views of the city. The gift shop had more tapestries and the cutest royal cat pillows. Behind the current castle are the remains of one of the oldest keeps in France from 994. We spent a little time outside exploring the area we saw from above. The prominent feature was the remnant of a keep or heavily fortified tower. The terrace also had a garden with neatly trimmed bushes. This sign showed what the tower would have looked like. The top was the living area, and below was storage for wine and provisions. An old, somewhat rickety scaffolding allowed us to climb to windows above. There were great views of the city. The church in the distance is St. John the Baptist. We crossed over the Loire River to our next destination, Chateau Azay-le-Rideau.
Follow D57 for 7.5 kilometers.
A fortress stood here in the 12th century. Gilles Berthelot, with his wife, started a new chateau in 1518. In the 19th century, Marquis de Biencourt began extensive changes, which continued through 4 generations. The state acquired the property in 1905. We entered the ground floor. This formal drawing room of the Marquis de Biencourt has the greatest art and finery. The dishes are from the 18th century East India Company. Next door, the billiard room, along with the drawing room, formed a single space for relaxing with friends. The storeroom was important. Tableware, linen, and pans for cooking were stored here. Next door is the kitchen. In the 16th century, the kitchen and storeroom were 3 feet lower. Game could be roasted in the fireplace. The dining table is set according to the Biencourt's porcelain table service. The library was also used for entertaining with gaming tables, music boxes, and books. The Great Hall is reached via the Grand Staircase. It was the site of feasts and balls in the 16th century. The fireplace has the emblem of King Francois I, a salamander. His motto, "I feed the good fire and extinguish the bad." The bedroom of Gilles Berthelot's wife is from the 16th century. Woven rush mat walls insulated the room from the cold. This room gets its name from the tapestries on the walls telling the story of Psyche, a mythological theme of the Renaissance. This was a waiting room for people the Lord wished to receive into his private apartments. On the walls were portraits of several kings. King Louis XIII spent 2 nights here in 1619. The ivory plaques on the cabinet show scenes from the 30 Years' War in Europe during Louis XIII's reign. A spiral staircase connects the floors. The The attic is extra tall with the steep pitched roof. The framework is oak cut from the forest of Chinon in 1517. The chateau sits on an island in the Rhone River, so we walked around to get more views and see the castle's reflection in the water. Azay-le-Rideau was a charming little castle in a beautiful setting. Walking toward the service quarters, we came upon the secret garden. It was full of flowers and herbs arranged in squares, as in the Renaissance time. Next, we drove 8 miles to Chateau Villandry. A fortress has stood here since the 12th century. A new chateau was begun in 1532 by Jean Breton. In 1754, Count Michel de Castellan took possession. He built large outbuildings and modernized the interior. Gardens were also put in. Finally, in 1906, Joachim Carvello and wife Anne Coleman purchased Villandry. They transformed the gardens in a style of the 16th century in harmony with the chateau's architecture. Their great-grandson runs the estate now. Upon entering, we are in the drawing room designed by Castellan. The study was Joachim Carvello's favorite place to work. Dining rooms first appeared in French aristocracy in the 18th century. Large windows provided light and views of the garden. The kitchen has not undergone any significant changes. The fireplace had a large roasting spit. Up a floor are the bedrooms. Prince Jerome's room with red silk walls is named for Napoleon's younger brother, who owned Villandry for a few years. Carvello's bedroom is in the keep or tower, the oldest part of the castle. The library has items that belong to Joachim and Anne Carvello. They were scientists, but after buying Villandry, they made the chateau their life's work. The kitchen bedroom has views of the ornamental kitchen garden. The moat bedroom belonged to Anne Carvello. It was my favorite bedroom, with a pleasing color palette and views from the window. The painting gallery has some of the Carvello's collection of 17th century Spanish paintings. The Oriental drawing room seemed barren until we looked up. Carvello purchased the ceiling from a 15th century palace in Spain. The 3,600 pieces of polychrome wood were dismantled and reassembled, taking more than a year. The pattern combines both Christian and Moorish art. Up another floor are two children's bedrooms. The dolls, bears, and rocking horse saw lots of love from the children who grew up here. This bedroom is also in the old tower. King Francois I visited here on January 17, 1543. The terrace of the keep was very large and gave us some of the best aerial views of the gardens below. The Villandry Gardens cover 22 acres and include 6 districts. A team of 10 gardeners maintain the property all year long. We left the castle and began exploring the grounds, enjoying the view from the tree-lined belvedere. In the distance is the town of Villandry. We also got a good view of the keep from the 12th century. The 4 box beds symbolize the 4 states of love. The cross garden has bushes trimmed into the Maltese cross, the cross of Languedoc, and the Basque cross. A grape-lined path was next to the moat. It was beautiful everywhere we looked. The kitchen garden has 2 plantings, spring and summer. "1,015 lime trees are on the estate, which require 3 months of pruning in the winter. 115,000 flowering and vegetable plants are planted every year. 50% of them are grown in the greenhouses on the site." A maze was characteristic of a Renaissance garden. It symbolizes man's earthly journey. Beautiful in the day, the gardens were also worth a visit for the Night of 1,000 Lights. More than 2,000 candles lined the walkways, and the chateau was beautifully lit. Spectators lined the hillside to watch a musical light and fountain show over the large pool in the shape of a Louis XV mirror. We traveled east, and the next two chateaus were close to the Loire River. Chaumont-sur-Loire, as seen today, is from the 15th century. Catherine de' Medici, wife of Henry II, owned it for a while, then sent Diane de Poitiers, Henry's mistress, here after he died. The de Bois were the last private owners until the state took control in 1938. Here are a few pictures from the chateau. It wasn't our favorite as Norm did not even take any video. It also didn't help that our camera with hundreds of pictures was stolen in Marseille. These rooms were furnished in more period decor, but a lot of the rooms had modern art installations that for me were totally out of place, especially in the chapel where it looked like debris trapped in a huge tumbleweed. Davide Caiola's work was a little more interesting as he took pictures of the chateau flower beds and then, with the aid of computers, turned the images into a sort of Monet abstract with movement. I had been interested in coming here because of the flower festival held each year. This year's theme, Resilience, made for some ugly, quirky gardens with bizarre artist statements. This was a huge letdown after seeing Villandry. This looked like wooden bacon in a field to me. The roads were quite narrow and buildings very close to the road. The Blois Castle sits in the city of Blois on the Loire River. It has 4 wings with 4 distinct architectural styles. Popular with French royalty, it was home to 7 kings, 10 queens, and several counts of Blois. Joan of Arc came here to be blessed before she defeated the English at Orléans, some 40 miles away. Part of the castle had a dark past when a duke was assassinated by the guards of Henry III. Others who died here were Anne of Brittany from the Langy Castle marriage and Catherine de' Medici. There are 564 rooms. This is a 360-degree view of the square. The building in the middle is the oldest part from 1214 and has the Estates Générales room. It was used as a courtroom. The first floor of this houses an art museum. We spent most of our time in the Francois I wing with its beautiful outside staircase. This wing has temporary exhibitions.
So this would have been the royal kitchen. What's interesting is the histopad, when you scan the emblem, it shows you what the room looked like originally as you pass your pad around. Back in the day, So it's like an virtual reality, augmented reality.
Kings had emblems, and Francois was the salamander and Louis XII a porcupine. This is one of the decorative stairways. Here is Francois I's bedchamber. He would receive guests in the blue-covered throne. Above the fireplace is the salamander of Francois I and ermine of Anne of Brittany. The Queen's Gallery had many portraits and glazed terracotta tiles. This room is dedicated to Catherine de' Medici, who died at Blois, January 5th, 1589, at 69 years of age. The Queen's studiolo, or study, is the only one from the French Renaissance, with 180 wood panels and 4 cabinets with concealed doors to hide valuables. On the second floor was the king's apartments under Henry III, whose portrait is on the left. The council chamber has paintings from the wars of religion leading up to the assassination of the Duke of Guise. This is Félix Dubert's office. Félix, an architect, restored the chateau with 25 years of work in the 1800s. These are neo-Renaissance rooms. Blois was famous in the 19th century for its ceramics. The piano is from 1834. We continued on to the wing of Louis XII, which is a fine art museum to see some ceramics, paintings, and sculptures and other art objects. As we came out of the castle, we were next to the House of Magic with a 6-headed hydra coming out of the windows to beckon visitors. It was quite different and drew a crowd of spectators. L'Aiguille Vive was our accommodation for the last 3 days in the Loire Valley. It is a bed and breakfast hosted by a lovely couple named Sylvie and Philippe Thurin. We stayed in an old wine grower's house from the 19th century. Our room, La Mitière, was very comfortable and clean. We loved the pool, flowers, and quiet surroundings. The nice part was conversing with our hosts over breakfast. One afternoon, I walked with them and Philippe showed me his wonderful vegetable garden. One night, we drove about 10 minutes to the little town of Montrichard for our dinner at La Fabrique Trattoria. We had breaded chicken, potatoes, and mixed vegetables. This tree-lined boulevard led us to Chateau Chenesceau, one of our favorites of those we visited. It is called the Ladies' Chateau for the famous women who were directly involved in its building and additions. It started with Catherine Brissonnet and her husband, Thomas Bohier, in 1514. This is the well of the old castle, and next to it, the tower. Through the front door was a hallway and adjoining rooms. The guards who protected the family used this room. Through this room, we reached the chapel where queens attended Mass. The stained glass windows are from 1954, as the originals were destroyed by bombs in 1944. On the wall is an inscription from Mary Stuart's Scottish Guards in 1543. Diane de Poitiers was the mistress of King Henry II and given Chenonceau in 1547. She had a 5-arch bridge built over the River Cher, which gave the castle a unique look. She also created gardens on the property. This was Catherine de' Medici's study upon the death of her husband, King Henry II. The 2-story gallery was built on Diane's Bridge by Catherine de' Medici in 1576. It is almost 200 feet long and 20 feet wide. Windows provided a lot of light to this wonderful ballroom. Here is a view of the River Cher. The decorative fireplace has a door that leads down to the left bank of the river. In World War II, the chateau was used to enter free France from the German-occupied part. The River Cher was the dividing line. We took the short walk through the woods to the final resting place of Louise Dupin, who in the 1700s was instrumental in saving the decaying chateau during the French Revolution. She and her husband, Claude Dupin, did extensive renovations. She died at age 93 in the chateau. We crossed over the drawbridge and continued our castle tour. Down some stairs were the pantry and servants' dining room and kitchen. Upstairs is the Francois I drawing room, with portraits and a 16th century cabinet, a wedding present to Francois II and Mary Stuart. Louis XIV visited the chateau in 1650. The staircase led to the first floor and a long hall with more rooms off of it. On the end was a balcony with views of the tower and gardens. Gabrielle was a mistress of Henry IV. We noticed the beautiful flower arrangements in the chateau. César was the illegitimate son of Henry IV and Gabrielle. This room was given its name in memory of Catherine de' Medici's 2 daughters and 3 daughter-in-laws. We like that this chateau had a lot of period furnishings. The striking feature of Catherine's room was the beautiful painted ceiling. It had the initials H and C for Henry II and Catherine. This is the second level of the gallery over the River Cher. It is filled with more works of art and the story of the ladies who shaped the chateau. Each end of the gallery had a fireplace with the coat of arms from the Medici family, 5 balls on a shield. There was one more floor to explore. The second floor hall highlights the restorative work of Marguerite Pelloz in the 19th century. She spent much of her wealth restoring the chateau, but lost Cheneseau in 1888. The last bedroom we saw belonged to Louise of Lorraine. When her husband, King Henry III, died in 1589, she had the room painted black and always wore white for mourning. She surrounded herself with nuns and devoted the rest of her life to reading, charity work, and prayer. That was the end of the royals at the chateau. It then fell into decay for more than a century. The best views of the chateau were seen by walking along the riverbank. On the other side of the river, we took a closer look at the gardens. Catherine's garden is about 1.5 acres and features a pool in the middle. This is another view of the original Marquis Tower. This is Diane de Poitier's 3-acre garden. It took 4 years to construct. The blooming flowers and shrubs were beautiful. Outbuildings included a wine cellar and apothecary. This was another of the beautiful flower arrangements made from flowers grown on the property. The recreated apothecary of Catherine Medici was quite beautiful with its wooden cabinets. She surrounded herself with herbalists, astrologers, and even Nostradamus. In 1913, Gaston Menier of the famous Menier chocolate family bought the chateau and during World War I set up a military hospital at the chateau from 1914 to 1918. The family still owns it today. There is a large vegetable and flower garden, which we also enjoyed walking through. The area was dotted with small villages and buildings, mostly being this beige color.
At the end of the road, turn left, D10.
In addition to chateaus, we visited a couple of villages, the first being Chédeny, known for its roses and other plantings. It is the only village in France to be ranked as a jardin remarquable. It now boasts 1,000 rose trees, 1,500 bulb plants, 100 bushes, and thousands of perennials. It began in 1998 when the mayor, an avid home gardener, wanted to spruce up the town of only 550. Power lines were buried and roses were brought in. A 2-day festival around Mother's Day brings thousands to admire the flowers. Even though we came in August, we enjoyed our walk through the streets and even saw a few roses. This is the cute 13th century church. was a lovely stroll, and I can imagine how beautiful it would have been with all the roses in bloom, but probably very crowded too. These old cars just added to the charm of Chez-Denis. Chambord is the largest chateau in the Loire Valley, built by Francois I as a hunting lodge in 1519 through 1547. The French Renaissance building has 400 rooms, but only 60 are open. He would only spend 49 days at the chateau. The courtyard has 2 entrance doors, and looking up, it is a beautiful building with 11 kinds of towers and 3 types of chimneys. As we entered the chateau, in the center was a unique double helix staircase ascending 3 floors. It is identical to drawings Leonardo da Vinci had made earlier. He was a good friend of Francois I. The large hall had rooms on either side, one of which has a movie about the architecture of the chateau. The helix staircase and lantern tower is central to the keep, and 4 wings are connected like a Greek cross. In the 4 corners are round towers that contained living quarters, also 3 floors high. On the right side is a connected royal wing. The left side has a connected chapel. Across the entrance was a reception room, the hunting gallery with paintings about hunting. Connected to it was a hunting cabinet. A doorway led to another courtyard and a view of the royal wing. Back past the central staircase was the Hall of Fame, with paintings and sculpture from Chambord's past royal families. A hunting lodge was the chateau's purpose, as evidenced by the numerous deer antlers on the wall. One tower contained the kitchen. As the chateau was not continually inhabited, all food and furnishings were brought in by hundreds of people for the king when he came to stay. Going into the royal wing, the ground floor contained carriages by the Count of Chambord in 1871 for his hypothetical entry into Paris as king. It never happened, so they are in perfect condition. Another room had some of the castle's former decorations, like the original lantern tower.
And Karen's showing the scale. So this would be, for example, the top. This is one of the outer staircases, not the central staircase.
This led up to the first floor and Francois' chamber. During the French Revolution, the chateau was pillaged, but period furniture and tapestries have been brought in. Back in the keep, we found the Queen Maria Theresa's room. It may have been Francois' initial bedchamber before the royal wing was constructed. The next three ceremonial apartments were built around 1680 for Louis XIV. In another tower area were decorated rooms in the 18th century style. Down a corridor was the chapel, the largest room in the castle. It was completed during the reign of King Louis XIV. Back through the keep and the central staircase, the southern tower had Laurel's room. In one central hall, Louis XIV had a theater for entertainment. Next to it was the Count of Chambord Museum. We went up the central staircase to the second floor and the 4 rooms or halls around it. The vaulted ceilings were decorated with emblems of Francois I, the salamander, and the initial F. Rooms off the towers were exhibition rooms of some modern art and a children's room.
We're at the top of this double helix staircase and we've reached the door. From there, they would go inside and climb another spiral up to the top.
Our final climb up the staircase brought us to the terrace for a view of the surrounding area. The lantern tower above the staircase was very ornate. The castle was built of tuffeau limestone from the Loire Valley. The dark accent pieces are slate. The royal symbol, the fleur de lis, is at the top. The grounds are immense. Miles of walking and biking paths are available to explore the grounds. The chateau has been owned by the government since 1930. This area was very marshy, and King Louis XIV made formal gardens here in 1684. They were restored in 2016 at a cost of 3.5 million euros. There are 600 trees, 800 shrubs, and 15,000 border plants. The Rhone River is seen above. We made our descent via the helix staircase. One can ascend and another descend this staircase without ever crossing paths.
Every once in a while you can look through and see people going the other way.
The grounds of the castle also had a flower and vegetable garden. Our last chateau, Chaverny, has been in the same family for over 6 centuries. The Huraults were financiers and in the service of several kings. There were 2 times when others owned it, Diane de Poitiers in the 16th century and again in the 18th century. In 1825 it was bought back by Anne and Victor Hurault, Marquis of Vibray. The descendants still live here in the right wing of the chateau. The dining room was beautiful, with carved furniture and tables set for children and adults. Even the ceiling was intricately painted. This is the main staircase that was straight with a landing rather than spiral. It leads to private apartments. The antlers are from a prehistoric elk, 6,000 years old, found in Siberia. The birth chamber is where mothers presented their newborns. The red boudoir was a sitting room for ladies. The rocking horse in the center is from around 1860. The wedding dress is from the 1994 wedding from the Marquise de Vibray. The cutest thing in this room was the animated dog on the floor. The arms room is the largest in the chateau and has weapons and armor from the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. The king's bedchamber was indeed fit for a king. The tapestries, carved paneling, and painted ceiling were definitely a sign of the family's wealth. The bed was slept in by Henry IV when he visited. This is a view of the backyard from the second floor. On the landing was a Lego model of the old Cheverny Castle from 1510. Like many chateaus, it had a small chapel. Back downstairs, we entered the Grand Salon. Every room in this chateau was richly furnished with decorated walls. There are 2,000 books in the library. Outside, we found the French hound statue. The chateau has about 100 hunting hounds. There is a lake on the property and some modern sculptures too. Just outside of Lyon, we made a quick visit to Perouge before beginning our cruise. We walked up a hill to enter the walled city.
After passing through that first gate and before the second.
Just to the left of the high gate is the fortified church of Sainte Marie Madeleine from 1440. Only weddings and funerals are held here now. The windows are narrow and arrows could be shot through them. One wall is part of the city wall. The townspeople of Perouge took refuge in the church when under attack.
Okay, we're going to be entering through one of two gates to the city. This one is High Gate. Not sure why, maybe it's higher than the other.
The town was founded as a French colony from people returning from Perugia, Italy, who were winemakers, farmers, and linen weavers. The pebble and stone walls gave it communal freedom from the Archbishop of Lyon. In 1601, it became French. When roads and railroads were built away from the city, its trade dwindled. The town started to decay. Houses and their stones were dismantled to use elsewhere. In 1911, a small group of people from Lyon decided to save the village. House by house, buildings were reconstructed into what it is today, a charming historical monument. A few artisans call the village home, and tourism is big. Walking the narrowed cobbled streets, we felt transported to another time. Movies such as The Three Musketeers have been filmed here. The streets lead to the city square on Place de Tilleul. There is a linden tree that was planted in 1792. Around the square are restaurants, some of which serve a kind of warm sugar pizza called galette de Pérouge. Family apartments were built above the shop fronts. We then headed to Lyon to begin our Rhone River cruise.